Welcome to Stack of Stats. I am Pamela Maldonado, joined by my golf partner in crime, Anthony Charter, who is a DFS analyst for TourJunkies.com. And we are here to preview all the analytics behind the golf bets. This week, specifically, the men's golf championship at the Tokyo Olympics. Charter, which country are you rooting for, my man?
Go Canada, go.
I was like, are you changing your mind? Like, did you change your citizenship or something? That was like a long pause into your excitement.
I was building up the suspense.
I would love to say that I am rooting for Team America. However, there's a couple of players that I am eyeing that aren't American, and I'll explain here in a bit. Looking at the course, it is Here's an opportunity for me
Let's
to
go. I was excited about this.
Kasumigaseki Country Club.
Close enough. Japanese like to pronounce their E's, so it's a Kasumi Kaseki or Kasiki. Kasumi. Yeah.
Kasumi. You know what? We could spend an entire hour trying to figure it out, so we'll just move on instead. But it is playing.
At one point I was going to introduce a segment where I tried to pick the most weirdest name in every field and make sure you don't know about it beforehand, and then get you to say it. We still might do that. Usually it comes up anyway.
10 out of 10 names I would butcher.
Always a good time.
In 2016, it was the first year that men's golf was an Olympic event since in 112 years. So that's kind of a big deal. Justin Rose won the 2016 event, shooting 16 under. This tournament, it is going to be a 72-hole stroke play, which means there will be no cut. All guys have a fair chance at 4 full rounds. There's no cut. If somebody has a tough round 1 or 2, if they have a tough round 1 or 2, they can potentially bounce back 3 or 4, and vice versa. Looking at the field, the Open champ, Colin Morika, he is the betting odds favorite at plus 750. Kind of no surprise coming into this as good a form as anybody. Followed by Xander Schauffele, who is still searching for his first title since January of 2019. And then you have Players champ Justin Thomas, and then Masters winner and Japan native Hideki Matsuyama, who won at this course in 2010. Did you happen to know? On the amateur
2009.
tour. And 2009 on the amateur tour to earn his first Masters invite. So if there's one player who has an experience at this exact course, it is Hideki. And then you have Wells Fargo champ Rory McIlroy rounding out the top 5. You already did mention that you are Canadian. We all know this. And you are rooting for your fellow countrymen. The U.S., they have 4 players in the 60-player field. You have Thomas, Morikawa, Schauffele, and then Patrick Reed is the 4th guy who was added last minute after Bryson DeChambeau tested positive for COVID. Reed, he is the only player to play both in 2016 Olympics and now the 2021 Games. You already explained on the last pod, the last PGA pod that we previewed, but the bigger story of this entire Olympics is Sungjae Im and Siwoo Kim, who are both representing South Korea. Can you explain what's on the line for these 2 players?
Yes, but there have been some recent developments that kind of make this a little bit more of a mute, but we'll get into it. So basically, the South Korean government forces all men to undergo 2 years of mandatory military service before the age of 28. Now, they're, BTS and some of the Korean pop guys have been able to avoid that. They've pushed it to I think 40, and then some of the hardcore gamers have had some weird exemptions or whatever. And obviously the South Korean military has their own professional gaming team too, so these guys can continue, but that's beside the point. Apparently winning a golf major like the Masters or any of the 4 golf majors isn't good enough. It has to be an Olympic medal.
Wow.
That's fine. So Siwoo's
no pressure 27. At all. It's fine.
Yeah. Siwoo's 27. So this is his last Olympics. Sungjae's only 23. So he'll have another shot anyway.
One more shot.
But it has recently been discovered that because Siwoo has his green card, and I assume Sungjae won't be that far away from having his, that they may be getting an exemption until the age of 35.
Interesting. But that's not confirmed.
Um,
That's just potentially.
oh, yeah, well, potentially it is confirmed that this was from Siwoo's caddy said to another caddy. But yeah, there hasn't been any official details released. But I mean, still, like these guys definitely want to compete. They literally
Right.
skipped the Open Championship
To
and
focus.
the last event on the PGA Tour to get here and focus and get their isolation done and all their testing so they can
Well,
just
then
sit
I
on the
think
golf course and prepare.
then there's two ways you can kind of go about betting either Siwoo Kim and or Sung Jae In. One is to not play them at all, because I personally, spoiler alert, neither player made it to your card or mine. But if you were dead set on playing either player, you can only go about this of one way, and that is to place, avoid the top 20s, the top 10s, and it's to win a medal because they're not trying to win first. You just have to get a medal, whether it be the bronze or the silver. So those would be your betting options if you were trying to long shot it, because come round four, maybe they're not going to be trying to birdie everything and to come out with a win. Instead, they're going to kind of play it more safe to make sure that they get the medal.
I think the top five bet is very um, probably has very good value for both guys. I mean, the price is decent for both,
Well, I
and
didn't
that's
even see
definitely what
top
they're
five
going to be
as an
going
option.
for.
I saw top 20, top 10, and then to medal. I didn't see any top fives.
Oh, you guys. I mean, my book didn't really change the outcome for their bets for
Hmm.
the Olympics. It's still like top finishes, top five, top 10, top 20. Like they basically just kept the card the exact same as they always release, um, and didn't get into anything specific. But Sungjae for a top five is plus 475, and
Hmm.
Siwoo is plus 900.
Right.
So, I mean, pretty
And then
decent value for both
and then
those.
slightly better odds for them to medal, which means win first, second, or third.
Yeah.
Essentially, you're betting a horse race, and
And
either of
this
them
is a
can.
decent week for those kind of bets too, because there are no ties.
Correct.
I mean, outside of fourth or whatever. But like if you have a tie for first, a tie for second, or a tie for third going in after the round is over, you immediately go into sudden death for every position.
Mhm.
So there won't be any dead heat rules or anything like that for the top three specifically. It's the top three will be 1, 2, and 3.
We'll get a medal. That moves us over to the course. Again, it is Kasumigaseki Country Club. It is a par 71, over 7,500 yards. I should get a gold medal just for saying that word. Let's move on. It is a Tom and Logan Fazio design. There are lots of water, lots of bunkers. It is tree lined fairways and it's undulated fairways. Precision iron shots, I think, are going to be key. But what is there anything else that you can tell us about this course?
Well, I mean, Tom and Logan just redesigned the course. This course is almost 100 years old. It was originally designed or created in 1929. So it's been around forever. And Tom and Logan kept most of the classic parts of the golf course. Like, course is long, it's tree lined and everything. All they did was kind of add some distance, add a bunch of undulation to the fairways into the greens to kind of modernize it for, like modern championship golf. Um, they the greens actually were two-tier greens, so they had two greens or two pins placements on every green, which they used half of the green in the winter and then the other
Mhm.
half of the green in the summer. Tom and Logan just did away with that and kind of reshaped all of those greens. So these greens are actually massive. They're like 2,000 square feet bigger on average than like what you would see on the PGA Tour. So massive, massive greens. I think around the green is going to be pretty much irrelevant because even green regulation is going to be almost irrelevant because these things are just absolutely massive. They are pure bent grass too, which is nice, and the fairways and tee boxes and all the rough is Zoysia. But they also did a lot with the bunkers too. They added a bunch of bunkers, made them a lot deeper, a little
Deeper.
more challenging. So those will definitely come into play. But there's not really any water. 18 is really the only hole. It's kind of like 18 at Bay Hill. Um, it's the only hole with like water really in play. There are two other water hazards, but they're literally like 10 feet off the tee on the left side of the rough. So that really shouldn't come into play for any of the guys.
So since we don't have course history, I'm kind of sticking to the general of who's coming into this with some good form. I want to look at the players who have a really good iron approach, and I want to have players who have the potential to make birdie. So I did look at birdie or better percentage and
Yeah.
bogey avoidance. So that brings us to you only have a less than there's only 60 players in the field. So it's not like we're coming out with a laundry list of players here. We have 6 players total, 3 between the both of us, 3 each from both of us. One of your players is Joaquin Neiman, Chile, representing Chile. His top 20 odds are minus 175, top 10 plus 160, and for him to win a gold medal, it is plus 2200. He is one of the better players when it comes to the iron shots, but he's kind of all over the place. You and I did love betting him a few months ago when he was racking up, back to back runner up finishes. And he did have a second place finish again at the Rocky Mortgage Classic just earlier this month. But outside of that, he's not doing anything spectacular. He has 30th, 50th. He missed the cut, 31st, 36th, and then he took 59th at the Open. Is there anything? I'm not convinced by him. He was initially on my list. I scratched him off. I don't really feel confident here. What do you like about him for this week?
I mean, mainly it's because he's an amazing player in a field that probably only 15 to
Pretty
20
soft.
guys have a legit chance of even placing. So the top
Yeah.
20 really should be probably the top 20 in the field, because there's a very steep drop off in talent after
Right.
that. But I mean, and even his top 10 in opportunities gained, top 10 in birdies, driving distance, putting, and DraftKings scoring also. So like he really knows how to pile up the score. But the Olympics, and same for Mito, who we'll talk about later. Chile's a very small country, and they don't have
Mhm.
many Olympians. So Joaquin is on record saying how much
It's
this
important.
event means to him, almost more than a major means to him. They don't medal very often, so like him going for a medal here is worth more to him than apparently winning the Masters of the U.S. Open or something. So a lot of extra motivation for the Chileans, and that's pretty much why I've been on both of them for a little while now.
And if I am looking at approach, birdie or better, and bogey avoidance, he is top 50 or better in top 40 or better in all 3 categories. He's only one of the few players who is top 40 or better in all 3 categories from the entire 60 field list. So I don't dislike this play at all. I'm just keeping my
He's
plays
still a young
very
pup.
small. He is. He's still very young, but I'm still just
Yeah,
keeping my list to a bare minimum. This is not something that I want to go broke on, and I just want to have fun, enjoy it. And let's be honest, are any of us actually going to watch golf? It
100%.
is overnight. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning. I will 100% wake up early to watch the Australian Open, but I will not stay up late to watch the Olympics.
They
It's
actually
a
tee
lot
off
tougher.
5:30 p.m. your time.
Oh, okay. Well, then maybe that might be different. That's good to know.
Japan is like 15 hour
14
or
hours.
14 hours ahead of
Hmm.
you.
Yeah,
So yeah,
tennis
like
starts real
they'll
late. Tennis starts at 9 p.m. and I'm like, oh, I can't do it. By 11 o'clock, I'm done.
yeah, they tee off at 5:30 Central and are off the course by 3:30 a.m. Central. So it's actually perfect for me. But yeah. Different time zone for sure.
Are you sure about that? Because 5 p.m. my time would be 7 p.m. their time.
Yeah, the first time is 6:30 p.m. Eastern time.
They're teeing off at 6:30 o'clock at night. Is there no? Is it? Do they have 100% daylight or something?
No, it's here 6:30 p.m. Eastern.
I I know you're saying
They are
5:30
teeing
my
they are
time.
teeing off at they are teeing off at 5:30 a.m. um Japan time,
Got it. So
or 7:30
5:30 p.m.
a.m.
Okay, that makes sense. 5:30 our
Yeah.
time is okay.
Yes.
Phew. So then
Evening golf, basically.
evening golf for
If you're in
us.
North America, lots of evening golf. If you're in like the West Coast, it's going to be prime, because you're going
Perfect.
to be watching golf from like 2:30 or 3:30 in the afternoon until midnight. It's going to be
Hmm.
great.
Yeah, well, that is Joaquin Neiman. Another player that you do like is fellow Canadian Cory Connors. Top 20, he is minus 190. Top 10, plus 140. And to win, plus 2200. Cory Connors, he had fantastic ball striking there for a really long stretch. However, in his last 2 tournaments, not named the Open, in his previous 2 before that, he took 53rd at the Memorial and he missed the cut at the US Open. He lost strokes on his approach, losing 4 strokes on his iron shots in one event and minus, and he lost a stroke on another event. He was doing really well there with his short game, and then it kind of just all fell apart once again. So he did bounce back. He took 15th at the Open. What do you like about him for this week for this course?
I mean, there was no doubt that Cory Connors was going to be on this. Same with the next pick. I mean, it's just I'm Canadian, they're Canadian. They're extremely motivated to get this done. And I mean, you can't be the best ball striker in the world every single week. You're going to progress a lot. He has one of the best swings in golf, period, and it's always going to be there. Sometimes the lack of putting talent kind of, probably gets frustrating and it affects other parts of your game. But even the putting is starting to come along. The around the green game is fine, which I don't think is going to be very useful here. But his scrambling is actually pretty decent. If he has a decent week on the putting green and just doesn't lose any strokes, he's got to be a lock for like a top 10 minimum.
The key is to stay neutral, and he has not stayed neutral. He has lost strokes putting in 5 of his last 6 events. So that is kind of asking a lot. So we'll see if he can get it done. Another player that you have on your list is Mackenzie Hughes, another fellow countryman, another Canadian, which outside of him being Canadian, I'm not sure why he's on your list. I see a whole bunch of red. He did, however, in his last start at the Open, he took 6th place, and we have no data for that. So I'm not sure where he gained his strokes from. I'm assuming it was from his putting because that's typically the best part of his game. So, what has you, other
Short game
than him
wizard.
being Canadian, what has you eyeing him for this week?
Um, yeah, I mean, obviously another Canadian, but like he's literally shown up in the last 2 majors. So I mean, he was in the second to last group at the U.S. Open, kind of fell off at the end, and then a top 6 at the Open. I mean, like he just shows up when it can, especially on bent grass. Bent grass is his best surface by far. He's a world-class short game player, top 20 in putting, scrambling, and he plays long par 4s and long par 3s really good too, which is going to come in handy because this is a really weird course actually. Like the 3 of the par 3s are over 200. They have a drivable par 4, another batch of par 4s under 400 yards. Then the rest of the par 4s are over 500 yards. And then same, like the par 5s are extremely long. 3 of them are over 600. One of them is like 640 yards. So it's going to be a challenge. And especially like with the guys that kind of lack a little bit of talent or maybe distance off the tee, these fairways are extremely wide.
Right.
They were wide before, just the undulation didn't really change anything in the width, but the rough is also just coming from the caddies on the ground. The rough is basically nothing. And the fairways are so wide that, basically 10 acres, I think, over what the tour average would be. So
Which is why I want to look at players who have good ball striking, and that's not necessarily him. You kind of rely
well, I
on his
mean,
short game to show up.
ball striking guys are more accurate. If the guys that lose a little bit of accuracy with narrow PGA Tour fairways, they can excel here because if their shot goes a little bit off, they still have a gigantic green and lots of room on the fairway. And one thing too, because this course has been it had the wettest they've ever had over 2020, and it's really kept going, and they're expecting a typhoon to roll in over the next couple of days too. So the course is super soft,
Right.
which might lead to them playing lift clean in place, which basically, if you're not familiar, as long as you're in the fairway, when you get to your ball, you can mark
Lift
it,
it, clean the ball.
lift it,
Yeah.
clean it up, drop it back down within a club length, and hit your shot. If you're in the rough, you're shit out of luck.
And that should
So
definitely
with
be
the
the
wide,
case because for tennis, they did have a rain delay. And so it did
yeah,
rain just yesterday. So I think rain
yeah.
is definitely
If
still
you,
in the
if you look at the
cards.
forecast, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday look pretty wet
Nothing
now.
but rain.
I'm
Yep.
not sure there's going to be delays. I mean, it's not no point in
Yeah.
even looking at that right now. But
Those are the 3 guys that you are targeting for the Tokyo Olympics for the men's golf. It is Joaquin Niemann, Chilean Joaquin Niemann, and then 2 Canadians in Cory Connors and Mackenzie Hughes. One player, moving over to the players that I'm looking at 3 players, none of which are in the US, and I'm looking to Mito Pereira, who is the other Chilean, aside of Joaquin Niemann. There's only 2 in the field, and it is both of them. Maybe you and I will knock one of them and, and do well. But Mito, he was on the pod last week. He did super well. He took sixth place at the 3M Open. He made his official PGA Tour debut with the Rocket Mortgage Classic, where he missed the cut. But then he followed that up with a 34th place finish, a fifth and a sixth. And he is fantastic ball striking. He is gaining strokes off the tee,
Hmm.
gaining strokes with his irons. He is pretty neutral around the green. And in his last tournament at 3M Open, gained nearly 4 strokes putting. So this guy is collectively coming in with probably the best form, but it is an extremely small sample size. And how small?
Yeah.
It's only 4 collective rounds. He is first in birdie or better in this time period. So I really like Mito Pereira to do well here. Top 20 is plus 140, top 10 is plus 475. And to win, I've already bet him as an outright, and he is plus 8,000. I don't know. He took 34th, 5th, and 6th. What's next? Give me a top 3.
I will say, I mean, I love Mito too. He's been on my betting card for the last 4 weeks in a row. Just missed out with the 34th, but like the fields he has been playing in have been super super weak. He hasn't
Mhm.
really had this much of a challenge. This will definitely be the toughest strength of field he's played in, and it still only has 60 players and 20 players who really even have a shot. But he hasn't really had
Exactly,
to.
which is what I was
He
going to
hasn't had
say.
to
You can't talk about the
face.
field. You can't talk about the field though when the 3M Open is pretty similar field size. I would say there was what 5 top 5 players, 5 top 10, top 20 players in the field at 3M Open, and he did well.
Nobody.
There's no, but there's
Yeah,
yeah,
but
there was.
I
You
don't
had.
think there was anybody in that field.
Mhm.
But still, I mean, he hasn't had to face Justin Thomas or Xander Schauffele or Colin Morikawa yet. Like it'll just be something. I mean, I
Right.
love the kid, and I hope he does really well. I have a little bit of concern over just because on Sunday he would have had to immediately go into isolation. He would have had to been isolated for 3 straight days, passing 3 straight COVID tests, and then being able to fly over on Tuesday. So there.
I
I
mean,
mean,
that's
he's
a
a really young
majority of
guy.
players. That's a majority
No,
of players. You're talking about
only
like
five
Patrick
of
Reed.
them.
You're talking about anybody who came from the
I
Open,
mean,
went
Patrick
back
Reed is
home, and now they're coming to Tokyo. I mean, well, it's not just
well,
him. It's not
most of the
just Patrick
guys went
Reed.
straight there.
Okay.
Like Xander, Colin, Cory Connors, Mac Hughes, they all went straight from the Open. So they've been there for about a week. But
Hmm.
yeah, Patrick Reed and Mito and Sepp Straka, coming from Minnesota, like straight into isolation. It will be a little weird, but I
Yeah.
mean, Mito's a really young guy, and obviously he's really motivated too, being a Chilean. We know that having a medal is very important to them too. So,
Well, you also
but I like the
know
kid.
that plus, I like to get plus money value, and a top 20 at plus 140 is an option if
Yeah,
they're on the board. I don't need them to finish top 10. Top 20 is good enough for me. Another player
big
that I'm
time.
looking at is Jonathan Vegas. He is top 20 plus 100 plus money value, top 10 plus 335, and to win plus 3,300. He's another player that's coming into this with some fantastic iron play. His ball striking
Hmm.
has been just top notch. He took second at the 3M Open. He took 11th at the John Deere. He took second at the Palmetto Championship, and he took ninth at the AT&T Byron Nelson. Though of course that was a team event. He stayed neutral in his last 2 tournaments on around the green, and he has gained strokes putting, which typically is his weak point. He gained 3 strokes and 2 strokes putting in his last 2 events. So I definitely like him to contend at this spot. What do you think about him?
Yeah, Vegas is playing amazing. Last week it was kind of weird because he hasn't really been putting up like super great results. The ball string has just been phenomenal. So I looked
Hmm.
at his ownership and I was like, wait, why is Vegas the most owned guy coming in here? And
Hmm.
then obviously he showed us why, because
Yeah.
he was a couple strokes off from taking it down. But yeah, just another one that has that coming right from Minnesota, going for the event too. Obviously we always hear about like a Sunday charge and having played 4 solid rounds all week being a little bit exhausting. But yeah, he's definitely got the form, and another guy like from Venezuela who a medal will be very important for him to go for. So a little bit of extra adrenaline and motivation for those guys will do well for sure.
I'm not going to use motivation as a factor at all. This is the Olympics. Everyone wants the gold for their country. So 60 players, all 60 of them want gold. or to finish and do well to represent their country. Another player
Except
that I'm looking
Rory.
at, except Rory, another player that I'm looking at is Abraham Answer. His odds, they aren't great for a top 20 minus 200, top 10 plus 175, and to win plus 2,500. But Answer, he's one of the best ball strikers on tour, and he did lose strokes for a long stretch there. He was losing strokes both around the green and in putting. However, in his last 6 tournaments, he has stayed neutral around the green, and he's actually just completely flipped the switch and has gained strokes putting in like 5 of his last 6 tournaments. He did take fourth at the Travelers, he did take 14th at the Charles Schwab, eighth at the PGA Championship, second at Wells Fargo, fifth at the Valspar. He is coming off 59th though at the Open. However, I don't know. I think this is anybody's field, and if he was going to take one down, I think this is a good opportunity for him. What do you think about Answer?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously know I love Abe. He's been on the betting card of the show
Pretty often.
almost
Pretty
every
often.
week in 2021. So definitely we'll have some of him in DFS. I mean, I'll probably throw at least a top 20 on because, like, I'm probably going to throw a top 20 on almost all of these like elite PGA Tour guys because I mean, other than like the top four, there's still a good value and almost auto lock having 4 rounds guaranteed.
Right.
You know, like in a PGA Tour with a cut, there's all kinds of elements. Some guys like to start off slow, and then on Friday maybe they just don't get it all there. But when you have 4 days, the elite really rises to the top. Like they know how to be patient. It's a big deal. And Abe is without a victory. He has the one Australian Open victory, but he hasn't really won anything meaningful. So this is definitely going to be a huge spot for him. And I see him near the top on Sunday. It will just depend on how the pressure gets to him because he really hasn't been in a good spot on a Sunday almost ever that he's performed. So it'll be really nice to see if he can finally close out something with some elite talent surrounding him.
Maybe this is the week. And as I said, I wasn't going to like any of the US players. Instead, Mito Pereira, I'm kind of going for like a Texas theme here. Coincidentally, Mito Pereira, he went to Texas Tech University. Jonathan Vegas is actually a fellow Longhorn. Hook 'em. And then Abraham Answer, him and I actually were born in the same city of McAllen, Texas, which is the Rio Grande Valley. So I'm kind of going for like the whole Texas theme. So I'm going to say no Team America, instead go Team Texas. And that's the theme of my
and
3
it's
players.
Spieth's birthday today.
And happy birthday. Yeah, but he's not in the field. So that wraps up the 6 players that we're looking to target for the Tokyo Olympics. It is Joaquin Niemann, Cory Connors, Mackenzie Hughes, Mito Pereira, Jonathan Vegas, and Abraham Answer. You can follow Charter on Twitter at AntCharter to check out his stuff at tourjunkies.com. You can follow me at Pamela M35, and you can see my stuff on Yahoo Sports. So that does it for another episode of Stack of Stats.
Good luck. Go Canada.